There is a specific feeling that arrives when you understand you are not given the full picture. Not anger necessarily, not immediately, something more precise than anger. The specific, slightly disorienting quality of realizing that the version of reality you were operating from, the one you were navigating with, making decisions based on, organizing your responses around, was not the complete version, that there was more, that the more was present and real and affecting how things unfolded while you were working from the incomplete version. That feeling has a name: betrayal of context. Not betrayal in the dramatic sense of a single deliberate act designed to harm, the quieter, more pervasive form, the specific cost of having been kept in the dark about something that belonged in your picture, of having navigated without information that was relevant to your navigation. You are in the process of understanding something you were not given access to before, and the understanding changes things. I want to begin with what it means to be kept from something, because kept is the specific word and it carries weight. Being kept from information is different from simply not knowing something. Not knowing something is neutral. The world is full of things we do not know, and the not knowing does not produce a particular effect unless the thing we do not know is relevant to something we are actively navigating. Being kept from something is different. It implies the information existed, was present, was known by someone, and was, through whatever mechanism, omission, deflection, deliberate concealment, the specific quality of someone who let you believe one version while knowing another, not extended to you. The gap between what existed and what you were given is the keeping. And the keeping, when it concerns something relevant to your life and your choices and your understanding of a situation you are inside of, has a cost. Not only the practical cost of having navigated without complete information, the interior cost of reckoning with what the keeping says about the situation and the people in it. Let me describe what the process of discovering what really happened tends to produce. Because discovery of this kind is not a single moment, it is a sequence. It begins with a fragment, something small, often something that initially reads as insignificant, a detail that does not quite fit the version of things you have been holding, that sits slightly wrong. That has a quality of incongruity that the ordinary explanation for it does not quite resolve. Most people at this stage explain the fragment away. They organize it into something that fits the existing picture because the existing picture is what they know and the fragment is small and the explanation, while slightly effortful, is available. You tend not to explain fragments away. This is the specific, particular Virgo quality that is most relevant here. The specific, honest. I notice when something does not add up quality of someone whose pattern recognition operates at a resolution that does not allow genuine incongruities to be filed quietly under things that do not matter. The fragment stays with you, and fragments that stay tend to collect other fragments. M. I want to describe what the accumulation of fragments produces, because this is where the discovery actually happens, not in a single revelation, in the specific, gradual, one piece at a time quality of a picture assembling itself, where the first fragment is joined by a second, and the second does not fit the existing picture either, and the two together suggest a shape that is different from the shape you had been working with, and then a third and a fourth. each one small, each one individually something that might have been dismissed, together something that cannot be. The picture that assembles is the what really happened, not the version that was presented, not the version that was constructed for you or that you constructed from the available information without access to what was being withheld. The actual version, the one that accounts for all the fragments rather than requiring you to dismiss them. That version, when it becomes visible enough to see clearly, tends to produce the specific quality I described at the opening. The disorientation of having navigated with an incomplete map. The picture that assembles is the what really happened, not the version that was presented, not the version that was constructed for you or that you constructed from the available information without access to what was being withheld. The actual version, the one that accounts for all the fragments rather than requiring you to dismiss them. That version, when it becomes visible enough to see clearly, tends to produce the specific quality I described at the opening. The disorientation of having navigated with an incomplete map. I want to describe what the assembly of fragments actually feels like from the inside, because it is a specific interior experience, and naming it helps you recognize it when it is happening rather than only in retrospect. It feels like things clicking into place, not pleasantly necessarily. The specific quality of understanding, which is not the same as the quality of good news. You can understand something fully and wish you did not understand it. The clicking into place has a quality of completion that exists independently of whether what is now complete is what you wanted to be true. It also tends to arrive in waves rather than all at once. A first wave of understanding that produces a partial picture, then a settling period where the partial picture is integrated. Then something else arrives, another fragment, another piece, and the picture updates again and again until the version that is now visible is different enough from the version you started with that the two are barely recognizable as accounts of the same situation. That is the experience of what really happened, becoming clear. It takes however long it takes, and it cannot be rushed without something being lost in the rushing. I want to speak to what you do with this, not as an instruction on what you should do, as an honest examination of what tends to be available. The first thing is the reckoning. The specific, interior, this requires sitting with quality of processing what the fuller picture means, not rushing immediately to the action that the fuller picture suggests might be warranted. Simply sitting with the reality of what is now visible, allowing the updated understanding to settle before any decision about what to do with it. This tends to take longer than it feels like it should, because the fuller picture does not simply update the understanding of one moment or one decision. It tends to retroactively update the understanding of a whole sequence, of how certain things are now read in light of what was previously missing, of what you might have done differently with access to the complete version. That retroactive understanding is its own specific process. It deserves its time. Tell me in the comments if this is landing on something real in your life. Whether the specific quality of coming into a fuller picture of something you were previously working from an incomplete version of matches what you are currently navigating. Whether the fragment collection I described is something you recognize from your own experience of this situation. The second thing the fuller picture tends to produce is a recalibration of trust. not a wholesale, everyone is suspect recalibration. The specific targeted quality of someone who now has information about the specific dynamic that produced the keeping, about who had access to what, about who chose what to share and what to withhold and why. That information is useful, not for the purpose of building a case or producing a confrontation or organizing a response that demonstrates what you now know. For the quieter, more durable purpose of updating your understanding of the people and the dynamics involved, of knowing with more accuracy than you had before what you are actually navigating. Accurate navigation requires accurate maps. The fuller picture, even when it is uncomfortable, is a better map, and better maps produce better navigation. I want to speak to something about the experience of having been kept from something that I think is the most important piece of this reading for your own well being. What you did with the incomplete version was not wrong. This is the specific thing that the discovery of what really happened can produce that is most worth addressing directly. The tendency to retroactively evaluate your own choices and responses from the position of someone who now has the fuller picture, to ask what you would have done differently, to measure what you did against what you would have done with access to the complete version. That measurement is unfair. You navigated with the information you had. The information you had was incomplete through no failure of your own perception or your own intelligence or your own willingness to see clearly. It was incomplete because it was withheld, because the version you were given was not the full version, because the map you were working with had territories missing from it that were not missing because you failed to look for them. You did what you could with what you were given. The fuller picture arriving now does not retroactively make that navigation wrong. It simply makes the next navigation better informed. Let me speak to something about what comes after the reckoning and the recalibration. Clarity, the specific, clean, now I know quality of someone who has moved through the disorientation of the discovery and who has arrived at a place of simply knowing what is true, not comfortable knowing necessarily. Not knowing that requires nothing further, but knowing, and knowing, even difficult knowing, has a quality that not knowing does not. It has ground, the specific, stable quality of something that can be stood on that does not shift. That is simply what it is, regardless of what the prior version of events suggested. You can navigate from ground. You cannot navigate as well from the specific, slightly floating quality of not quite knowing that the incomplete picture produces, where something always does not quite add up, and the not adding up requires continuous low level energy to manage. The fuller picture ends that management. And the energy that was going into managing the incongruity returns to you. For the next navigation, from the better map, clarity, the specific, clean, now I know quality of someone who has moved through the disorientation of the discovery and who has arrived at a place of simply knowing what is true, not comfortable knowing necessarily. Not knowing that requires nothing further, but knowing, and knowing, even difficult knowing, has a quality that not knowing does not. It has ground, the specific, stable quality of something that can be stood on that does not shift. That is simply what it is, regardless of what the prior version of events suggested. You can navigate from ground. You cannot navigate as well from the specific, slightly floating quality of not quite knowing that the incomplete picture produces, where something always does not quite add up, and the not adding up requires continuous low level energy to manage. That management is invisible while it is happening. It is only visible when it stops. When the energy that was going into maintaining the explanation for the fragments, into holding the version of events that required ignoring what did not fit, is no longer required. When the fuller picture has settled enough that the picture simply is what it is and no further management is needed, the energy returns to you, not dramatically, in the quiet, gradual, morning by morning quality of someone who is no longer spending a portion of their available resource on something that was consuming it without their full awareness. That is one of the specific under-recognized gifts of the fuller picture. Not just the knowing, the freedom from the management of the not quite knowing. I want to say something about the resilience this kind of discovery requires, because it does require something. It requires the willingness to update. Not everyone has this willingness in equal measure. There is a specific human tendency to protect a prior understanding rather than revise it, to find ways to preserve the version of events that was held even in the face of evidence that the version was incomplete, to manage the fragments into things that fit the existing picture rather than allowing the existing picture to be revised by the fragments. You tend to have the willingness to update. It is uncomfortable. The updating always is. The specific destabilizing quality of revising a significant understanding always produces a period of ground loss before the new, more accurate ground is established. But you move through that period, you allow the revision, you come out of it with a more accurate picture than you had before. And a more accurate picture, even when it reveals something that the prior version mercifully concealed, is what allows you to navigate the rest of what is in front of you with the full quality of your own intelligence engaged. That willingness to see clearly is one of your most durable strengths. As we close, I want to give you one image, a map, the version you were working from, detailed in some places, accurate in those places, genuinely useful in the territories it covered. And in the territories it did not cover, not blank, but filled with the best available estimate of what was there, what seemed most likely given what was visible. And now the same map with the missing territories filled in, not with better guesses, with what was actually there. The map is the same map. The territory it covers is the same territory. What has changed is the accuracy of the picture, the correspondence between what the map shows and what is actually present. You navigate better with this map, not because you are different, because the picture is more complete. And you, Virgo, have always been someone who navigates better with the complete picture. That is what you now have.